Hey, what's going on, GameLeapers? This is Iggs, and in today's video, we're going to be going through the 10 most low-key broken champions for patch 12.19. So these champions might not be as picked and banned as much as the most OP characters, but they certainly do pack a punch and will still give you a very good chance of winning your games. Now, of course, we will give you the runes, the builds, the summoner spells, the skill orders that you have to abuse on these champions so you can actually hit the ground running. And if you do want to master any of these champions mechanically, so in terms of micro, if you want to master the roles you play them in as well, make sure you check out the GameLeap website down below. We've got so much fresh content made by the best challenger players and coaches from around the world, yours truly included. So make sure you check out those videos, guys. And to get exclusive access to our library of content, make sure you sign up. Now let's get into the countdown. Now we will start by talking about top laners, junglers, mid laners, ADCs, and then supports. Now we've only got one top laner on this countdown. This is Vladimir. Now as far as Vladimir goes, you might be thinking, well, he's not the most kind of innately broken champion at the moment. But the reason why Vladimir is actually good in the top lane is because of the meta at the moment in the top lane. So those of you who have been watching Worlds, right? Even though it's on the last patch, it's still really the same in 12.19. Lots of tanks are getting picked. Sejuani, Maokai, Ornn. These champions, what do they do for Vladimir? They give him a free scaling lane. And Vladimir, because you outscale a bunch of champions, is able just to relax, get CS per minute, and once those team fights past 20 minutes start coming around, you can easily be the strongest champion on the Rift. Just make sure you are taking Night Harvester and probably gathering Storm as well. Yes, you can take Scorch for the laning phase, but most of the time you're playing Vladimir to scale. And because of the Night Harvester buff recently, this is nice for Vlad. And once you get your Sork Shoes and then Death Cap, these are just massive power spikes. Death Cap as well triggers Night Harvester's mythic passive, which is giving you ability haste. Very important for Vladimir, so you can use your transfusion, your Q that you're maxing first, pretty much every 3 or 4 seconds. So Vladimir in the top lane, pick him when you know you have a free lane, and you will dominate. Now heading into the jungle here, we have 4 champions to talk about. Now the first one is Ekko, who got some serious buffs in 12.19, and to be honest, I think I could have included him in the most broken champions video yesterday. Now the reason why is because Ekko's passive damage got increased. This is big for Ekko because your passive is a big part of your kit. Also, your ultimate's damage got buffed as well. Now landing your ultimate can be a little bit difficult sometimes, but these are huge buffs for a champion who, well, he wasn't really like that strong before. These buffs have pushed him into OP territory, and you can see the stats here in Diamond and above. Ekko is an S tier champion, and if we even went to Master and above and even Challenger, he's an S plus tier jungler. Now in the mid lane, he still struggles a little bit because you don't have the wave clear you used to have in terms of your Q, right? So in terms of one-shotting the back range minions, it's still hard to do. So in the jungle, that's just the best role to abuse Ekko in. Just make sure, guys, as far as your items go, Rocket Belt, because we need the magic penetration, the dash, the movement, it's really useful as well. And then after Sorcery Shoes, Lich Bane, the damage you deal, especially when you pair this with the passive buff from 12.19, it is ridiculous. So Ekko in the jungle is the first jungler to think about picking. Now speaking of AP, another jungler you might think about picking, this is Maokai. But you're not really picking Maokai to bring some damage to the team, you're picking Maokai for his utility. Now I know there are a bunch of builds going around at the moment, but I'm going to recommend the Phase Rush rune page on your screens right now, not Aftershock. Lots of people for some reason love to go Aftershock, and it might make sense into a very engage-oriented team, but Maokai with Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, Water Walking, the movement speed is off chops. And when you get Turbo Chem Tank, so I know this page here is recommending Frostfire Gauntlet, but Turbo Chem Tank just pairs better with this rune page because of the active, the movement speed you get, even the ability haste from the mythic passive in Chem Tank is very useful. And also when you have Hex Flash from your inspiration tree, you can use this to jump over walls. It's really useful to gank lanes when you don't have flash as well. So this setup for Maokai, full utility, I think it's really underrated. And because of the Q buff this patch, so in terms of its damage to monsters, this helps your clear speed immensely. So you can actually clear jungle camps now without falling behind against some of the stronger clearers. Just be a little bit careful picking Maokai into Olaf because Olaf, well, you can't CC him. So all your CC is completely redundant, so just think about that. Now moving on, the next jungler, this is Nunu and Willump. And for Nunu, because of the buff to your ultimate in 12.19, well, there's an interesting setup here. Now I don't think this might be the best setup, but it's certainly the most fun and can be broken if you're against very, very squishy champions. So we're talking Dark Harvest, then with Chief Shot, which is going to amplify your ultimate damage, which got buffed in 12.19, remember, and then of course we're going full AP, full Chad Nunu. So this is with Sorcerer Shoes, get these first because you love the movement speed, that's why we're going Celerity and Water Walking activates as well with your Snowball, and then we're getting Rocket Belt. Rocket Belt 2, even the active is very useful to get yourself in position to stun the enemy champions, to get a really big absolute zero off when they're all slowed from something else. And then Shadow Flame, we're going full magic penetration. Trust me, you will one-shot even tanky champions who might even have a bit of magic resist. So this setup, it is super fun and it might look kind of troll and risky, which I guess sometimes it might be, but if you can get going in the early game, it is probably the best snowballing build, literally, in the entire game. Now the last jungler to think about picking, if you don't want to play any of those AP junglers, then picking Zed in the jungle for 12.19 is a great choice. And I know what you're thinking, Zed's OP, we already know this. Of course he is. In the mid lane, he's OP. In the jungle, he doesn't have the best win rates. Like, look at this for me. In Master and above, he's a B tier champion with a 49% win rate. But when we run this rune page in over 50 matches, over a 61% win rate. This is legit. So with Dark Harvest, the procs with pretty much all your abilities when the enemy champions are less than half HP. And this damage, remember, will increase throughout a game. And because Zed scales so well, this is nice. And by running Sudden Impact, they've got buffed in 12-14 extra damage. You will deal a lot of damage with this rune over the course of a game. And by taking Eyeball Collection and then Treasure Hunter, it's a very snowbally rune page. And because solo queue, right, is solo queue, there's going to be mayhem. There's going to be chaos. This makes you an agent of chaos. I was about to put on a Joker voice, but I don't want to embarrass myself. And then as far as your secondary tree goes, you want Footwear and then Cosmic Insight. Footwear is nice because it saves you 300 gold and movement speed as well once you actually do get the boots. This helps you out, get around the map and stuff. And Cosmic Insight to lower your cooldowns and your flash cooldown and smite cooldown. It just feels really good to play. And let's not forget the actual buffs to Zed. So your E, the energy cost going down by 10. And remember the damage you do to monsters now because of that and through your passive, right? So your auto attacks when they're less than half HP, you clear camps actually as quick as anyone. Just make sure you're taking 2 adaptive force, guys. Do not take any attack speed shards in your minor runes. That's very important. And maybe another point of interest here, Eclipse got nerfed. Oh my god, Zed is dead. No, he's not. You can take Dustblade, you can go Prowler's Call. You can even rush a Ghostblade like it's recommending here into Lucidity Boots. You've got other options, so don't feel as if you have to go Eclipse. So really, you're only going Eclipse when the enemy team is just like so tanky, so bruisery. Otherwise, you can go one of the other Lethality Mythics. Now heading into the mid lane here, well, we've only got one mid laner, so a bit like the top lane. This being Sett. Now I know what you're thinking, Sett, well, shouldn't you play him in the top lane? For sure you can. But playing Sett in the mid lane, because of the buff to his E, to your Phase Breaker, the 70% slow you have. Think about the mid lane. Most of the time you're playing against what? Ranged champions who are squishy and mobile. Once you land your E, especially if you have a strong ganking jungler, that enemy mid laner is 100% going to die. And because of this pressure you have, even if the enemy champion plays safe and doesn't give you any opportunities to land your Phase Breaker onto them, you will just win the lane through that pressure alone. So you will always have priority, you can move around the map, and because you're an early game champion, you can dominate and snowball the game out of control before it's even begun. Now, as far as the actual build here goes, it does look a little strange. Merc Treads, Frostfire Gauntlet, and then Titanic Hydra. Why on earth are we not getting Balk or Stridebreaker, these items? Well, let's think about it for a second. Rushing Merc Treads is probably the best way to go, because most of the time, yes, you're playing against AP champions, right? And when you have Merc Treads, you can legit just run through whatever slow or CC they have and get to them easier, and use your Face Breaker, which is really why you're picking Sett mid. So Merc Treads is a really good first buy. Then as far as Frostfire Gauntlet goes, this item feels really good on Sett because of the slow you apply, but also because of the passive where it's giving you a bunch of HP. Even the Immolate passive helps with your wave clear, which is still good, but it becomes even better. And then when you pair this with Titanic Hydra, why do these items synergize so well? Because Titanic Hydra is giving you AD based off your HP. And remember, once you get Titanic, Frostfire Gauntlet passive will activate. So you're actually getting so much AD from these items, even though you're still like kind of full tank. So you will still be dealing a lot of damage, and because of the W buff, in the same patch as your Face Breaker 70% slow buff, Sett in the mid lane is just an incredibly good champion at the moment. Like, look at these win rates for me, and he's classified as an S tier champion in Platinum and above. Now moving down to the bot lane, we have 3 bot laners as far as AD carries and AP carries go. Now the first of these is Tristana. Now I really love Tristana at the moment because she does so well into Kai'Sa, who's getting picked a lot. Like, it's very easy for you against a Kai'Sa because she's short range to get your full combo off and just completely one-shot them. And you can see these stats here that in Diamond and above for Tristana, in over 16,000 matches, over a 52% win rate with lethal tempo and Kraken Slayer. And if you think you can snowball the lane, you can certainly run a rune page like this with Treasure Hunter because Tristana loves jumping in there. It's very easy to get kills and punish the enemy mistakes, so this lets you accelerate your scaling so you can get to the mid to late game a lot quicker. And because your item spikes are so huge, so if Kraken Slayer, even Berserker Screes, PD, and then Infinity Edge, you will be one-shotting everybody. So Tristana is the first AD carry to think about. Now next up is a champion who actually got buffed in 12-19, this being Jinx. So for Jinx, your base attack damage going up by 2 from 57 to 59, and your base damage to your Super Mega Death Rocket going up to the primary target, so the first target it hits going up. This is really good for Jinx in the early game, which is really where you've been struggling. Now still, the Fishbones nerfed from earlier in the season, where it costs more mana to use your Fishbones, even the range got nerfed as well. It's still a bit of a hit to take, but these buffs have actually put Jinx back on the map, and in the majority of elos, her win rate has increased by almost 2%. And already in 12-19 from over 20,000 matches, she is an S tier AD carry once again. Just make sure though, guys, you are playing Jinx for the late game. And because of these early game buffs, you shouldn't have to worry about taking really like any kind of early game runes in a way, so you can afford to go absolute focus and Gathering Storm, which again will help you in the mid to late game, which is where you become that massive hyper carry. So Jinx, because of the 12-19 buffs, and any Jinx players out there, let me know if you can actually feel a difference playing this champion, and that goes for all the other champions who got changed as well. Now, the final bot laner to think about playing, well, let's just say your team is like full AD. So you've got a Yasuo mid, a Yone top, and maybe a Zed jungle, which will probably happen, let's be honest, in solo queue. You need to pick a bit of AP in the bot lane. Well, picking Heimerdinger is ideal. The reason why is because, well, let's think about it. Lots of AD carries at the moment aren't really that scary in the early game. You might think of maybe a champion like Draven, maybe Kalista is still a little bit scary, but for the most part, there's no real standout threat for Heimerdinger. And because you're such a good scaling champion, right, you can get to that mid to late game for free by playing him in the bot lane. And if you are playing against a Heimerdinger, don't get complacent because the Donger does pack a bit of power in the early game. Because of those Scorch buffs in 12-14, when you pair this with Comet, your poke damage is actually really annoying to deal with, and because of your turrets, the enemy AD carry and support, well, they have to make a decision. Do I go for the turrets? Do I go for the priority by hitting the minions? Like, it's very difficult to deal with the Donger in the bot lane. As far as your summoner spells go, of course, you can go Exhaust, you can even run TP if you think the laning phase is going to be super free. Just make sure, guys, you are maxing your Q, which actually got buffed kind of recently, and of course, for your mythic, make sure you're getting a Leandra's Anguish. Now, the final champion, guys, to consider picking in 12-19 who is low-key broken, this is Rakan, who is the only support on this countdown, unfortunately. But Rakan, because of the AP buffs to Rakan in 12-19, and you're probably thinking, AP Rakan, like, what are you talking about? Well, of course, we're not going like full AP Rakan with Rocket Belt or Night Harvester, which I guess you could try out. But if we think about it, Shirelius is giving you AP, Chemtech Putrefier is giving you a bit of AP, so it does actually like mean something. Those ratios that go buffed, they are going to appreciate the items you're going to build, so Shirelius and then Putrefier. And this is why Rakan's win rate, you can see in high reloads, is over 52%. His win rate, a bit like Jinx, has increased by a couple of percent as a result of these changes, so think about picking Rakan in your ranked games for the rest of 12-19. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you did enjoy it, please remember to leave a like down below. Any questions, any thoughts, leave them in the comment section. And until our next Season 12 upload, this has been it. Peace.